Hello, I'm Brian Kelly, CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. You know, I'm branded today. I've got my small business briefing gear on, and this was actually one of our former chairs. It was made by Bonnie Alfonso, Elfie logo gear up in Traverse City. And I know, shout out to Bonnie. I know she watches every single one of these. So Sarah, we have a lot of things that are going on today, but before we get to that, I think we need to recognize our sponsor.
Yeah, so as our longtime viewers know, we are sponsored by Marana Group. They are a data, document, and distribution company in Kalamazoo. So thank you to David Roy and Marana Group for your sponsorship.
So as I mentioned, it is Valentine's Day, and I thought this would be a good opportunity for us to remind people that we're always putting out relevant content to use to help you run and manage your business, to get ahead of things. And I don't always see the articles before they come out, but there was one today, a headline that SBAM put out to our members that kind of caught my attention and covered a pretty interesting survey. Sarah, you want to tell us about that?
Sure. So SBAM is partnered with the American Society of Employers, and their team really does a fantastic job looking at the landscape and pulling together interesting and relevant information that we can then share with our members. Premium, VIP, and elite members also have an opportunity to work with ASE to receive kind of a free HR hotline, which is amazing. But all of our members get access to the content, including some of these interesting studies on workplace romance. So more than 26% of US workers have either began a new workplace romance during COVID or continued one, which seemed kind of high considering many of us are working remote at least part of the time. 65% of US workers who are in or have been involved in a workplace romance dated their peers. And then there's some other 12% dated subordinates and 19% dated superiors. So that always gets to be a little tricky as well. And 28% have had someone they consider their work spouse. So anyway, there's a lot of statistics out there. It shows that it is a large percentage of the population that is impacted by workplace romance. And the great thing about ASE is that they can help you make sure that all of your HR manuals are up to date. So if you need a policy in workplace romance or anything else, you can turn to ASE for assistance there. So just a fun little stat here on Valentine's Day. And speaking of stats, I think we're going to have a quick look at the numbers, Brian.
All right, so we do have, it's Monday, so it's what we call it SBAM Data Monday. So I'll share with you some slides here, although I don't have too many because it's more of the same, which is to say good news. Looks good compared to last week. So looking at all the different areas in our state, clear downward trends in cases is continuing. So the West, the Midwest, South, and Northeast all heading down. Alaska still the highest in the country, but clearly downward, strong downward trend with the rest of the country. And really, you know, it just, everything feels very, very different. If you put them all together, here's the United States of America the last 90 days. You'll see that these numbers have come down pretty much as rapidly as they went up. That is what we expected. That's what we saw happen in other places, like South Africa as the first one that kind of dealt with an Omicron wave where it went up and down pretty quickly. And then here's looking at hospitalization again nationwide. So this is across the U.S. and it's still falling. You see this is the 7-day average here, this line, and you see every day is coming in under that average. That means that line is going to continue to come down in terms of the 7-day average. And then the ICUs never went up as much. And there's several reasons for this. Part because Omicron was caused less severe illness. It's just there was so much of it that it still really had a big impact on hospitalization overall. But ICUs didn't go up as much as before, but even those are coming down, and hospitalizations still actually feeling kind of crowded. But I think for after a few weeks, that's gonna be very different. So here's what Michigan looks like, and as you can see, the our average numbers have now come down to a point that is about where it was before we ever even heard about Omicron. So this is going back into the fall of last year, when we had the kind of the slow motion increase. Michigan is back below that slow motion increase. So again, still looks like it's trending downward, and that's just overall great news. Looking at Michigan's hospitalization, again, overall hospitalization and ICUs are included on here. And Michigan has just had more waves than other states, the way it worked out for us. And we had this double where my theory being this was kind of the Delta peak, and on the heels of it, the Omicron peak, and showing up in hospitalizations. But our ICUs got a little higher, but again, it was because we had a lot of Delta still on the front end of this wave. And so we were kind of late on the Delta wave, which was every bit as severe as previous variants, and then coming down now. So, overall, this is, I would say, very good news that everything's still heading in the right direction. And I would say pretty good chances that 30 days from now, hospitals, in terms of their census, will be in really good shape.
Well, that's kind of just as you had predicted and shared with us earlier, that by mid-February into March, we would be seeing some very different numbers as compared to December and January. So that is great news. So Brian, last week, Alexa Kramer and I had an opportunity to meet with the Department of Treasury to learn a little bit about the Afflicted business grants. And these grants, the press release and the information is still forthcoming, but we do have a little bit of a preview that we want to share with our briefing audience today. And as those of you might remember, the state of Michigan has $409 million from the American Rescue Plan Act funds that they are going to grant to eligible businesses who have suffered financial hardship due to COVID. And so what we did learn is the types of businesses that are going to be impacted. And we also learned the target date that the applications will open up. So I'll run through the list here of those business types, and that includes entertainment venues, recreational facilities and public places of amusement. We have gyms and exercise facilities, food service establishment, cosmetology and barber services, nursery dealers and growers, athletic trainers, body art facilities, and then hotel or bed and breakfast. So those are the eligible businesses. There's a hardship calculator. It depends on when you were in business and the difference in your, what the hardship was between the years 2019 and 2020. And again, that's for up to $409 million total. What I think was the good news is that the application process is set to open March 1st, and it'll run through March 31st. And from what we understand, it's not a first come, first serve. So people will have ample time to put their application in, make sure they really get all the information in correctly, and then wait to make sure that they're approved and then get their funds.
So this program, you might recall that we had advocated for something like this previously in the budget in 2021, and we had an opportunity. It got in the budget and it got vetoed, and then at the end of last year, when they were working on economic development, our message was, wait, as long as you're doing economic development and grants to big businesses making big investments, don't forget about the ones that were here the whole time. So the idea behind the Afflicted Business is grant program is that you got these industries, they're the ones that were most restricted by government actions for the longest period of time, or for the most part, that's how it lines up. So in the logic behind it was, hey, if the government said you had to restrict your capacity for a long time, or said you couldn't operate at all, but you still had to pay rent, or you still had to pay property taxes, you still had to pay your licensing fees, that the idea is that, well, it's not really fair. Like, they made you close down, you still had to pay unemployment into the unemployment fund. So all these things were mandatory payments while you're closed down, that you should get some of that back, that what you paid the government to operate when the government was saying you couldn't operate. So that's the idea here, is that those businesses that were the most restricted by the pandemic and the government's response to the pandemic could enter in what those expenses are that the government charged you during those times. And then depending on how many you apply, it's kind of like a proration, that $400+ million will then be distributed out. And I think it's a big improvement that they're not doing first come, first serve. This thing where it was really kind of a dog eat dog world out there for a while, and kind of trying to finger on the submit button when the thing hit, and could the pipeline and the state servers handle all the activity, all that kind of stuff. Really, they've decided for a full month, we're going to take the applications, and then everybody who's qualified will get a prorated amount based on whatever they qualify for, and the amount that's available. One other additional piece of information: the legislature has come back now and suggested that maybe we ought to put a little more money into that fund. It's all based on estimates. They put $409 million into it because they thought that's about how many people could qualify and how much they would qualify for. But what if there are 500 million in applications for it, and then everybody kind of gets prorated down less. And I think the legislature, looking at the overall size of the budget, that there's literally billions and billions of extra dollars laying around, that they can afford to fully fund the program. Whether that will make it through the whole process, get the governor's signature, I don't know. We do know we have $409 million that are set aside for this. And as soon as that process goes live, then you can definitely look to SBAM for the appropriate links and a little bit of guidance in terms of how you get through it, what you need to have in order to to submit and justify the grant requests that you make. And we'll want to make sure that every single person who qualifies does get it back, because again, you're really just, the way I see it is, it's a reimbursement for expenses you incurred to the government at a time when the government restricted your activities.
Yes, good point. Thank you for adding a little bit of clarification there. I actually have the email ready to go. So those of you who are members and on our email list, as soon as we get the green light to really share everything from the Department of Treasury, I'll hit send on that. So I anticipate that coming out here relatively quickly. Luckily, they have a few webinars scheduled. The first one is actually Thursday of this week. So if you need more information, need guidance on how to actually make those calculations, there's going to be opportunities for you to ask those questions and get some answers here ahead of the application opening up. So
yeah, I think it would probably make sense too, because we're kind of hard on state government sometimes. But one thing I will say is that we obviously, this application process isn't open yet, and so it's yet to be seen how smoothly it will work. But everything that we've seen so far, they really look like they have their act together. I'm hopeful that this will be a smooth and positive process for people. So the Department of Treasury, I don't think, has really handled a lot of, this is like a new thing, that they're building. I don't think there's any other framework out there that they could borrow and say, hey, we'll use it for this. They've had to build this brand new thing for this unique grant program, but it does seem to be a very kind of thoughtful and meticulous process. I'm hopeful that when they hit the on button that it turns out as well as it looks like it's been planned.
Agreed. SBAM managed the weatherization grants in the fall of 2020. That was a much smaller dollar amount, but it is a stressful endeavor. So I'm wishing the Department of Treasury all the best on this one. So Brian, last Thursday, Rob and Alexa and I were on the show. You were out, but we did talk a little bit about the situation at the Ambassador Bridge and, what was kind of unfolding. At that point, the governor had issued a statement saying, this needs to end. So since then, what has transpired?
So the standoff now has ended, or at least the bridge is back open. So the Ambassador Bridge is back open to traffic, and the Canadians did do some, cleared out some protesters, and I think they made some arrests and even had to move some vehicles out. They went through court. They had a whole process for that. Now that's their business, but it did impact the trade that goes back and forth across the border. And it illustrated a couple of things. First is, I think it made clear how much reliance there really is for manufacturing on that one bridge. So there are about 10,000 commercial vehicles that go over that bridge every day. It's kind of a mind-boggling number if you think about it. The value of goods and services that are going back and forth, again, every day on that bridge, over $300 million. So, and that's just the direct stuff. Kind of the indirect impact of that amount of activity kind of hitting a screeching halt can really spiral. And so it's really illustrated the amount of reliance, first of all, we have on what is arguably the most important bridge, at least to the economy. The most important bridge in all of North America is that bridge. And I really do believe that it is the most important bridge in all of North America, or at least to our economy. So the fact that it's back open is good news. What I'm hoping it also has illustrated is the importance of having redundancy in that particular connector between the integrated manufacturing supply chain that happens across the continent, but especially in Windsor and Detroit, and more generally in our state and the province. Like, it's just, there's a ton of manufacturing on either side of the Detroit River, and it affects both of us a lot when it slows down or has an issue. So the Gordie Howe Bridge is being built about a mile to the south. This is something that SBAM has supported in the past, because most trade, people don't realize this, most firms that engage in trade are actually small businesses between the United States. It doesn't make up the majority of the dollar value of the volume, because there's a few like giant players, but most of the trade are actually not big businesses. Most of the firms that are engaging in trade between US and Canada are small businesses. And so having redundancy in that particular transportation corridor is really important. The Ambassador Bridge is really old. It's about 90 years old. And if it were to have a maintenance emergency that even took it down for, say, a month, then it would be a huge disruption. So the idea that the Gordie Howe Bridge is under construction right now, it has been for some time. I think it's scheduled to be finished in about 2024, is really important. One other thing about this is that, there was a standoff, and obviously, vaccine mandate policies have been very controversial. As these numbers start to come down, it is my hope, and actually I kind of expect, that coming here into the spring, that there'll be an opportunity for governments, including ours, but also the Canadian government, to look at the rules that they've set and make a determination on whether or not it's time to kind of move out of this phase of kind of treating it like a pandemic and treating the coronavirus more like an endemic. And so it's not a surprise to me that even though it was a huge disruption with the protesters, that the Canadian government wasn't just going to change right then policy because they don't want to invite more protests. But the on other issues, to block the bridge on different issues. But the fact that 90% of people of truckers got vaccinated already, numbers are coming down. It would be a great opportunity for the Canadian government and really all levels of government to use that as, to move away from these types of policies that have been so divisive, and kind of recognize that we're going into a different phase here. And whether or not that'll happen, I don't, I can't guarantee it, but I can kind of feel it, that there are a lot of people in politics right now that are elected to make policy decisions that are looking for a way out of how they were doing things and to get to a place where they're doing it differently in the future. I can, I get some instincts for this because I was an elected person myself, and I can kind of feel it. They're looking for a way to something different in the future. We've already seen that here in Michigan. I mean, the way that the government in Michigan is managing the pandemic this year is very, very different than a year ago. I think even our federal government and the Canadian federal government are going to be looking to make similar types of pivots here in the future. But the good news in the short term is the Ambassador Bridge is back open, and the trade between two of the largest trading partners in the world. It's pretty, for a long time, U.S. Canada was the largest trade relationship in the world. I think that U.S. China has now surpassed as number one, and U.S. Canada is number two, but still massive and very important to Michigan. So it's good that it's back, it's back open, trade is flowing again. And maybe the policymakers will look at this as an opportunity to kind of move away from the policies that are kind of causing so much turmoil and get back to really try to get back to some semblance of normal.
Right, especially as we, come upon the 2-year anniversary of the initial stay-at-home orders. Normal would be great for all of us, right? So Brian, let's talk about some federal issues and Build Back Better. We've covered Build Back Better. It's a go, it's not going. We've kind of been all over the place. What is your prediction on Build Back Better, the future of Build Back Better, or a similar federal spending bill?
Even though it's not like in the news right now, there's definitely a renewed interest in Washington talking about where to go from here. You've got a rift among the Democrats who control both chambers and the presidency between moderates and progressives, and some of them want to go further, and they really haven't kind of gelled around one thing. And so there's a lot more discussions now, and people saying, well, we can't just let nothing happen. And so it's happening under the radar. So I want to put it on the radar of our viewers that this is not over, right? They're still looking for a pathway. Now, what could possibly create an opening for them to change course here? And I think it's the State of the Union address, which will be on March 1st. I would imagine that at that point that the president is going to put something on the table, like a truly skinny down version of Build Back Better, and something that responds to the demands of Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. Now, whether or not that's acceptable to the more progressive wing of the Democratic caucuses in the House and the Senate there in Congress in DC, that definitely remains to be seen. But I will be very surprised if the president does not use March 1st in the State of the Union address as a jumping off point for a renewed push for some kind of a skinny down version. Now, those are loaded words, kind of, because remember, they put a skinny down version before, but it was all just accounting gimmicks. It really wasn't skinny down. And so whether or not they're really willing to let go of some of the some of the programs and the spending in there and do something that is truly more modest, if they want to get anything passed, they're going to have to scale it back like a lot. And what are they left with, and will it be good or bad? I don't have the insight into the process to have any way of knowing what the contents would be. But I will be surprised if we don't see a renewed push coming up real soon. So I've got my ear to the ground on this one, and you'll definitely hear from us if we see anything problematic that comes up. And just as a reminder, like we got involved, we did oppose Build Back Better. We don't, federal spending bills are normally not the sorts of things that we get very involved in, but in those bills, they had a bunch of policies that would have cost small businesses, and at a time when we thought it was unacceptable to really consider that, and at a time when spending was contributing to inflationary pressures. We still have inflationary pressures, and while there are some signs that maybe we're starting to see that increase kind of slow down, it hasn't come down, and there's no reason to think it will come down until we have normalized federal spending for a few quarters probably. So really the best case scenario is that they don't come out with anything probably in terms of from our perspective, but I'll be surprised if they just let it go from here. So we'll keep you up to speed as things progress there in DC.
So I suppose the Thursday, March 3rd briefing will be our opportunity to find out if your prediction is correct or not. All right, so before we say goodbye for today, 1 month from today is an event, Brian, that is very near and dear to your heart, and that is the My Hidden Talent Workshop. So Monday, March 14th at the Kellogg Center. Would you just give a quick overview as to why employers should consider attending this event?
I really do hope that you will consider coming, especially if finding and retaining talent has been a challenge. So Hidden Talent is an effort that actually started when I was in state government to raise awareness of and then connect employers with the know-how and the resources and the organizations that can help them intentionally develop and implement a strategy on how to hire people with disabilities. People with disabilities, they have to be creative and determined and innovative just to do the things that most of us take for granted every day. Now think about that. Innovation, creativity, determination, perseverance, those are great qualities to have in a workforce. And so that's what this is all about, is say, okay, we've got this workforce shortage out there. There's a group of people that are often not given an opportunity. And what a great win-win scenario here. But there's the thing is there are certain ways that there's strategies that you can implement to be successful in it. And that's what the Hidden Talent Seminar is all about. So we do a workshop. We try to make it very hands-on, and we have one coming up here in the spring, and would really love to have you. So we'll put the link in the comments there for how you can register to come, and hopefully I'll see you there.
And I will mention that thanks to the generosity of the title sponsor, Delta Dental, registration for SBAM members is free. So hopefully you can check it out on March 14th. All right, that's all we have for you today. Hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
See you on Thursday, everybody.